Good morning, and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Princeton, where in our open and welcoming community, we live our message of hope, love, justice, and joy. Whether you're here in Channing Hall or visiting us on Zoom, it's wonderful to be together on this beautiful, beautiful day. And we extend a special welcome to our visitors this morning. We're so happy to welcome you here. And we invite you to stop by our newcomer table after the service if you haven't already, so that we can get you any information that you'd like about our congregation and our many ministries. One announcement is that we have a brunch today after the service. Please stay after to enjoy a delicious meal with friends new and old. It's hosted by our Sanctuary and Refugee Ministry. And your donations for your brunch will go to support the family in Afghanistan of the refugee family who we are temporarily housing in our building. The family of our family, like many in Afghanistan, are experiencing significant food insecurity. So it's our honor to support them as we can this morning. Today's Sunday plate offering, which is usually split between social justice outreach and our congregation's operations, will instead go in its entirety to that same purpose today. So after worship, let us gather for food and fellowship and in mutual concern and support for the loved ones of our temporary guests. And now let us turn together toward the one light of each sunbeam, the one breath of each body, the one fire of each spark. Led by love and joined in wonder, let us worship together.
Today's chalice words come from the poet Saeed Jones from his poem, A Memory. When they finished burying me, what was left sent up a demand like a hand blooming in the fresh dirt. When I'm back, I want a body like a slash of lightning. They heard me, I couldn't hear their answers. But silence has never stopped me from praying. Alive, how many nights did I spend knelt between the knees of gods and men, begging for rain, for rent, for reasons to remain. A body like the sky seeking justice, a body like the light reaching right down into the field where you thought you could hide from me. They've taken their bald rose stems and black umbrellas home now. They've cooked for one another, sung hymns as if they didn't prefer jazz. I'm just a memory now, but history has never stopped me from praying.
Our prayer this morning comes from the pen of the poet E.E. Cummings. You don't need to follow along in your hymnal, but if you want to, it's 504, or if you just want to look it up later on, it's 504. I thank you, God, for this most amazing day, for the leaping greenly spirits of trees and a blue true dream of sky, and for everything which is natural, which is infinite, which is yes. I who have died am alive again today. And this is the sun's birthday. This is the birthday of life and of love and wings and of the gay, great, happening, illimitably earth. How should tasting, touching, hearing, seeing, breathing, any lifted from the no of all nothing, human merely being, doubt unimaginable you? Now the ears of my ears awake. And now the eyes of my eyes are opened. And here in the silence, we offer these, the prayers and meditations of our hearts.
It was at 4 years old, before I even really had the power of language, that I learned that you had to love, but also respect the four elements in equal measure. For instance, my first memory of water, a memory vague in detail, but strong in feeling, is of both loving water and being hurt by it. We'd moved to the Stanworth Apartments on Bayard Lane in Princeton, and so my parents ended up enrolling me in the Princeton YWCA nursery school. Of those years, most of all, I remember the sharp, chlorinated smell of the Y swimming pool. It was love at first sight. But I also remember being miserable because I ended up having chronic ear infections, and swimming, even though it was great in so many other ways, often made them worse until the rescue of ear tube surgery. And air was not much better. I struggled with asthma and upper respiratory infections, so I was almost destined to be an indoorsy child. My love of walking and sunshine limited to my daily half-mile walk to the Lawrence Public Library. So, like many children of my generation, my experience of the four elements, earth, air, fire, and water, was dominated by literature and popular culture. And this literature, these books, these shows always added a fifth element, though I was never quite clear why. There was Captain Planet, only powered up and completed by Mati, young Mati with his heart ring. That later, there was Avatar, the Last Airbender, and there it is again, the fifth element, the human avatar themselves, chosen as a child without their consent, of course, to unify the powers of all the different nations into peace. And then in my 20s, I found my author and one of my guiding tutors, Terry Pratchett, who suggests that to earth, air, fire, and water, there should be added at least, of course, the element of surprise. I read that and I thought it was clever at the time, but never took it in as deeply as some of his other metaphors. For a while, I never stopped for a moment to think about why is there always a fifth? I nevertheless accumulated lessons on my own time. Rocky little Gansett Beach in Woods Hole, Massachusetts, which as a child I had resented for its stretch of rocks out in the water that tore my tiny feet, somewhere along the line became my favorite place in the world. When I was at my angriest, being fired from a summer candy store job in my early 20s, I asked my mother if I could set my despised uniform shirt on fire in our driveway. I almost at times resented that nameless or too many named fifth element. Can't I just work hard enough, learn deep enough? When I moved back home at age 32, I promptly denied myself most of the elements altogether, becoming again the booksy indoor child, appreciating the walk to the library only so I could hide in the stacks. But moving back home doesn't mean that you never left. When I made my way out of the library after a few years, plus or minus a pandemic, something changed that maybe can only happen when you revisit spaces that you think you know down to your bones. I felt the fifth element, surprise, part, the avatar, or what I now know our CUPS folks call spirit. I found a favorite tree that could show me something different on every walk through town. Stopping on the bridge over Lake Carnegie on a sunny day with the wind in my hair could now take my breath away, in the good way. I still don't know that I understand why there is a fifth element, but I understand now that I always had the four with me, even when they confused me, even when they hurt me, even when I would do anything but listen to them. But the story isn't over yet. I will go home today through my favorite woody culvert and add another chapter.
When I decided to do elements, Alice sent me a link of the YouTube video of that song, and I thought, well, it's not the kind of elements I'm going to talk about. But then I thought, how can you not have that in the service? It doesn't matter what the topic is, just, you know, grace, whatever, sing an element song. Once lightning struck a tree in a forest, and it caused a small fire that quickly began to burn out of control. All the animals who lived in the forest saw and felt the fire growing, and they began to flee. They found shelter next to a pond a safe distance away and watched as the fire began to consume their forest home. They also watched as one small bird filled her mouth with water from the pond. But rather than drink it, she flew over the flames and dropped the water, seeking to quell some of the inferno. She did this over and over again, never stopping to rest, working with great urgency. Her eyes would fill with smoke and she would find it hard to breathe, but again and again, she flew over the flames to release a few drops of water. The other animals watched her efforts and they began to tell her that she would never put out the fire that way. The flames were too big and she was too small. The flames were many and she was just one. The flames were powerful and she was a small bird. Her cause was hopeless, they proclaimed. Meanwhile, she continued flying over the flames, trying to put them out one drop at a time. This story is a Jataka tale from India, one in a canon of parables that involve previous incarnations of the Buddha. In other words, the Buddha as an animal or an outcast or some other being before the Buddha was born as the Buddha. Dating them with any certainty isn't really possible, but the earliest known iterations of some impressions of some of the wisdom is dated around the 2nd century BCE. That's about 300 to 400 years after the death of the Buddha. And there's a bunch of them and some later additions to the canon that reflect different cultures and expressions in schools of Buddhism. They're pretty diverse at this point. And many are told again and again in different ways, leading to lots of different versions of the same basic tale. In this one, the bird is usually a parrot, but I've seen a hummingbird too. It always involves fire, though, that which can warm and cook and cleanse, that which can renew and regenerate, and that which bears a creative energy that is born of destruction. The modern writer, activist, feminist, and neo-pagan Starhawk, born Miriam Simos in St. Paul in 1951, writes to all of this in her book, The Earth Path, grounding your spirit in the rhythms of nature. Starhawk often writes to themes of earth wisdom and eco-activism, grounding that activism in spiritual connection with and obligation to a sacred, interconnected sense of the natural world. Hers is not a spirituality of detached enlightenment that imagines communing with nature as its own ethical or moral end. The communing, the ritual, the devotion is intended to ground and strengthen the individual for the active defense of the ecosystem. And just as importantly, the communing really is communal. The rituals are of the many. The devotion is shared. Starhawk is huge on community for its creative energy, its restorative embrace, and its collective wisdom. In this way, her work is just as religious as it is spiritual. It has a strong sense of one's private devotional life, which is more of the spirit, and a strong sense of our collective commitments to one another and the world, which is more of the religious. This balance is probably part of why she's so popular in our faith. Though she's not of our faith, she knows that the answer to the question of, are you spiritual or religious, must be yes. We must seek, serve, and grow, and we must seek, serve, and grow together. Only alone, we become too narrowly impressed with our own assertions to really grow. Only as many, our efforts become anxious and unsustainable, and we burn out. Her path is one that has us grow inwardly to provide wisdom and resilience, and outwardly to provide humility and connection, all of which makes us stronger for the important work ahead. And in that book, The Earth Path, one of several she's authored, she writes about fire, that which in the story came from lightning and began destroying the forest. She sees fire as healthy and needed and regenerative, and also dangerous if left untended or if it becomes uncontrollable. She compares fire to anger and rage in this way. Controlled, anger can become the energy behind movements for justice and peace and care of the planet. It can provide a clarity that can lead one to make a needed break from someone, someplace, or something that has diminished life in some way. Anger can be healthy, creative, and useful. Or anger can become that which harms and destroys another person, community, or life. Fire, too, is all of this. The fire that I start on my grill leads to a nice, if overcooked, dinner for the family. The recent wildfires of Canada, however, had me doubling down on my inhaler, and we had it much, much easier here than elsewhere. So fire is all of this, blessing and burden, an element of life and destruction, an element to be treated with respect and gratitude, and at times, healthy trepidation. She writes, a blessing for fire that can guide us in this. Alice will share it.
We give praise and gratitude to the fire, the sun's fire that fuels all life on Earth, the radiant heat and light that is the course of energy for all beings, from the tiniest alga to the towering redwood, from the grass to the buffalo, from the worm to the hawk. We give thanks for the wildfire that cleanses the land, and we acknowledge its awesome power to destroy and to renew. We ask help in living with the power of fire, that we learn once again how to be in balance with fire on the land. We give thanks for the hearth fire, which warms us in the cold and gives our homes and communities a heart center. We ask that our hearts be open to learn the teachings of fire, that we understand how to feed the creative sparks that arise in each of us, and that we feed the flames of passion and love for the earth. May the flames teach us how to dance, how to transform our rage into radiant action. Blessed be the fire.
Thank you, Alice. Starhawk 2 writes of water in her book, that which the bird brought in her beak to try and quell the fire. Like the fire, water brings life and destruction. It cleanses and renews, and in times of great storm or flood brings fear and danger. Water makes us think of tears too, those of grief or happiness, of desperate sobs and breathless laughter. We are more water than anything else, as is the earth, a sacred connection that surges through our blood and bodies like the tides. Water too, though named by us in a myriad ways according to its location and structure of its envisioned enclosure, is really one body on earth and sky, connected by life much greater than the imaginations of our naming. We name the rivers and lakes and oceans anyway, just like we do with our gods, though they are all much larger, older, ever renewing and ever flowing than our language could ever capture. But we have words, so let us use them with humility and a sense of openness and an interest in how they flow from other lives and experiences. As she does with fire, Starhawk offers a blessing for water, which Airly will share.
A blessing for water. Praise and gratitude to the sacred waters of the world, to the oceans, the mother of life, the womb of the plant life that freshens our air with oxygen, the brew that is stirred by sunlight and the moon's gravity into great currents and tides that move across Earth, circulating the means of life, bringing warmth to the frozen Arctic and cool, fresh winds to the tropics. We give thanks for the blessed clouds and the rain that brings the gift of life to the land, that eases the thirst of roots, that grows the trees and sustains life even in the dry desert. We give thanks for the springs that bring life-giving water up from the ground, for the small stream and creeks, for the mighty river. We praise the beauty of water, the sparkle of the sunlight on a blue lake, the shimmer of moonlight on the ocean's waves, the white spray of the waterfall. We take delight in the sweet singing of the dancing stream and the roar of the river in flood. We ask help to know within ourselves all the powers of water, to wear down and to build up, to ebb and to flow, to nurture and to destroy, to merge and to separate. We know that water has great powers of healing and cleansing, and we also know that water is vulnerable to contamination and pollution. We ask help in our work as healers, in our efforts to ensure that the waters of the world run clean and run free, that all the earth's children have the water they need to sustain abundance of life. Blessed be the water.
So too, she meditates on air in her book, that which carries water place to place and through which the bird flew to try and douse the fire that threatened the forest. Air is breathed by the birds and the fire and the trees whose exhalations offer us what we need for life. Trees and plants thus help keep us alive by keeping us breathing and by creating an entire ecosystem often unnoticed and unseeable by us. For so many live in the element of air as we do on the ground. Parrots and gnats, owls and bats, flying beings with songs that awaken, enchant, and sometimes startle us. Music in a sacred language we don't know and can't speak, but whose sound we listen for in the early morning and late at night. As she does with fire and water, Starhawk offers a blessing for air, which Emma will now share.
Blessing for air. Praise and gratitude to the air, the breath of the living earth. We give thanks
to you for our lives, for our breath, for the literal inspiration that keeps us alive. Praise and gratitude for those ancient ancestors, the first magicians that learned to use sunlight to make food and so gave us the gift of oxygen. Praise and gratitude to those who learned to burn food for energy and to the great exchange, the world breath that passes from the green lung to the red and back again. Praise for the sun that sets the cauldron of the winds in motion, and to the great winds that soar over the face of the earth. Praise to the storm that brings the rain, the water of life to the land. Gratitude to the creatures of the air, the birds that lift up our hearts with their songs, the insects in the caresses of the flowers, a caress that brings the fruit and the seed. May our minds be as clear and as open as the air. May we learn from the wild winds how to soar across barriers and sweep away obstacles. May the air and the winds of the world be cleansed. May we learn to be good guardians and friends and allies of the air that is our life. May we make the right decisions that can restore the balance. Blessed be the air.
So too, she meditates on the earth over which the air and winds move, and that which was being burned in the story by the lightning fire. Earth as element is foundation, stability, and centrality. Its fruits keep us alive, shelter us, and upon it we make home wherever we've ended up. Its paths lead us to wonder, to peace, to life known and mysterious, and most importantly, to one another. For it is here upon earth that we love one another, and by doing that, we build communities ever more beloved. It is here on whatever part of the earth we've ended up upon that our work of building the beloved community always begins, first within ourselves and then to our families, our communities, and the world. Earth is too big for us to reach with our spirit and ethics, and so we start right where we are with the people before us and build upon the grace of the earth elements right here in our lives today and each moment. As she does with fire, water, and air, Starhawk offers a blessing for the earth, which Eva will share.
We give gratitude to the earth, to the dust of stars that congealed into the body of this planet, our home, and that still gives form and solidity to our bones and flesh. We honor the rocks, our siblings, and their long, slow cycles of transformation into life and back to seabed, mountain, stone. We give thanks to the living soil, the mother's flesh, and the billion creatures that haunt her caves and pores and chasms, to the beetles and the ants and the termites, to the soil bacteria swimming in the slick of water that clings to her mineral archways, to the worms, wriggling, eating, coupling, and transforming within her. We bless the plants, the roots and stems and boughs, the great trees reaching upward, and the deep-rooted herbs pushing down, all who contribute to the cycles of birth and growth and death and decay that lead us to fertility and new growth. For all that feeds and sustains life, for all that grows, runs, leaps, and flies, we give thanks. Blessed be the earth.
Thank you, Eva. And in all of these blessings of the elements and insights offered therein, we can look to the story of the birds and see how fire destroys and renews, and how water can quench and leave us thirsty, and how air can be clean and dangerous, and how home can be safe and unwelcoming. But really, we can look upon that solo bird and know that our greatest use of the elements is to bring us together, to not be the solo bird trying to put out a fire, and to not allow anyone else to be that solo animal either. We must join in, we must seek others. Though we too, like that bird, won't be able to put out a great fire by ourselves, many of us absolutely can, each offering needs accorded to us and developed by us. In the story itself, it concludes with the gods coming to the rescue of the animals in the forest. One god in particular is so moved by the small bird's actions that the god cries tears upon the flames, which puts them out, and the animals are safe again. We can await no such holy tears, only human hands and human hearts joining together to douse the flames that threaten today, flames of hatred and of cruelty and of the earth's destruction. I would love to look to the sky and await those holy tears, but we must live as though they won't fall upon us and live instead for and with one another in a community, a country, and a world becoming ever more beloved by our actions. We must fill each of our beaks with water and our hearts with love and our hands with efforts to bring about peace and promise in the world. We must each fly over the flames, getting singed and smoky sometimes, but join together in building the world that will truly bless all those to come. May it be so, and amen. After the service, don't forget, enjoy brunch, enjoy friendship, enjoy one another, and then go enjoy this beautiful, beautiful day. And at the end of our hour, we extinguish our chalice, knowing that its light carries us again until we gather again. Go forth grateful for the moments before you, the breath within you, the people among you, and the Spirit guiding you toward lives of greater love and kindness. And go forth knowing that you are held always and always with everyone else by that great love of no beginning and never ending. Go in peace, and amen.